Getting kind of chilly now, you guys. Man, this weather is freaking crazy, you guys. It's finally getting cold here in Vegas. We went from last week to 90 degrees to this week in the 60s. It's crazy. We finally got the hoodie on. Finally getting chilly out here. But purpose of this video, you guys, I get a lot of questions about what oil I use or what oil to use, and there's always only been one answer, and that's, you guys can see it down there, AMSOIL, you guys. AMSOIL for the win by far, especially for this particular video, you guys, for this setup, I should say. We're doing a break-in because the motor's brand new, everything is brand new, of course, and you want to make sure you have the correct oil when you're breaking in your engine. Let me show you. Don't mind the dust, you guys. It has been super windy. Like I said, we went from a 90-degree week to like in the 60s, and then it's been crazy windy, and the car's a little dusty. But break-in purpose of this video, we got to add some oil to this motor before we get that first start. We're super close, but this is the stuff I like to use. This stuff right here from AMSOIL, it is phenomenal. It is by far one of the best oils I've ever used when it comes to breaking in your motor. First 500, 600, 700 miles, you definitely want to run this stuff right here. Now, if you guys are interested in this particular product, I will link down in the description below a link to this, so that way you guys can get signed up and get your guys' account with AMSOIL. And you guys should be able to receive free shipping as long as you guys spend over $100, I believe it is. But again, we'll put all that information down below. But we got to put some oil in this thing real quick. Oh yeah, they also do, look at that, even power steering fluid, you guys. We got to do some power steering as well, along with a bunch of other fluids. I've already added the rear end fluid to this thing because we had it in the air. But let me open up this thing here. And the reason why we want to put this in today, because we're not necessarily going to start the car today, but I got to finish up the coil pack harness / wiring right here. And I really cannot finish it until I put the oil in, because the oil caps are kind of like right here and they're hidden. As soon as the coil pack goes on, you cannot get to that without taking the other top of the valve cover off, not to mention the coil pack. I mean, it's not hard, but I'd rather just go ahead and get it out of the way so that way we got some oil in the motor ready to go. Now, some of the best features about this oil, you guys, it's actually pretty amazing how they designed this stuff and engineered it, is that it really helps seat those piston rings when it comes to break-in. It's really going to help those piston rings seat, make sure they seat properly. That way there's no issues, and you maximize the compression of the motor as far as the actual piston rings go. So you super important when it comes to that. Definitely that. I mean, not to mention, it's actually gonna reduce blow-by. So that way, again, those piston rings are seated properly and you're not getting crazy blow-by when you're actually on a brand new motor, I should say, really. But not to mention the anti-additives that they have in this stuff. It's actually, it's pretty cool. They have an anti-wear additive basically on this oil that's really going to protect your cam and bearings in the actual break-in period. So super important when you're really breaking in a motor, everything's fresh, and it's make sure that all that stuff is accounted for. And AMSOIL for the win for sure. So definitely something to think about when you guys are selecting your oil. Make sure that they have that kind of stuff built into it. But again, man, I always use their stuff. Amazing product. Not to mention, we will use their stuff when it comes down to once this motor has basically reached that break-in period. We'll keep the AMSOIL in it after the fact as well with a nice full synthetic oil. Not to mention something else that you want to make sure is that you don't run this stuff for more than 1,000 miles. Again, break-in period. I suggest between 500 and 600 miles, pull it out, put some fresh oil in it, but definitely do not ever run it longer than 1,000 miles. You definitely don't want to do that. But there's one other thing I want to show you guys in this video. I've been working on a nice cold air intake for this car. This motor's sitting back a little bit more, so not just any intake tube will fit, and we've been designing one in CAD, not to mention like an air cleaner box right here as well to kind of protect it from the heat. Now, I've made one before in the past on some couple other builds, but it was just kind of by hand, by scratch. So we decided to 3D scan this area right here on the car and build one in CAD, and if we can get it just right, just dialed in, we might even offer it to you guys. Maybe you put it on the website. But let me finish this up and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Check out this bad boy, you guys. You like that? Little prototype special, aka 3D printing. Now, so this is the intake tube we designed, and don't mind the tape because we had to print it in 2 pieces because my printer is not that big, obviously. Not to mention the quality of the print was okay. It wasn't great, but for prototype purposes, this is going to be perfect. But this is the intake box slash, I guess you can call it heat shield that I came up with. And again, I've had one in the past before, but it wasn't perfect. And this is something I've been working on, and it's taken a couple trial and errors just to get it where I want it, but it's pretty close. It's pretty there. It's only going to use 2 screws to mount it, one here and one on the inside of the core support in here. But the purpose of this is just to keep that unwanted heat from the engine bay on that cold side of that filter. You know what I mean? The last thing you want to do is suck in hot air into that intake. So this guy should sit something like this. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but something like that. And you can kind of have an idea how that's going to land. But you can see we got a nice 90 degree coming out there, and it comes down, and it should sit into our shield here, our box, you can say, if I can get it to manipulate it correctly. But something like that. Obviously we'll have a boot, a silicone boot on that side, and we'll have one on this side. And I still got to build also another piece that basically will adapt to this, another piece of pipe, so to speak, that'll probably get welded or mounted on this side so it's stationary, and you can actually take this thing apart with having to pull the air filter out or something like that. So it's still serviceable, so you can pull the intake off, and you can leave this area alone without having to dismantle your whole intake. So that's kind of the idea right there. Obviously your air intake will live here. But another thing I'm working on, because I want to add some more air to this thing, is I'm thinking about making kind of like a screen slash what do you call it, like I guess an air vent that'll actually allow cold air, fresh air, to also come through your inner fender right here. So you'd have to notch that inner fender out, obviously, for this vent that actually would bring in fresh air from the bottom of the car into this area here. So that's something I'm working on, you guys. Put it down in the comments below if you guys think this would be a good product to add to the website. But we got to keep working. Obviously, we got a bunch of stuff to still do. Again, I got to finish the wiring on the coil packs. Not to mention spark plug wires and things like that. The fuel actually has to go on after the fact that we get that valve cover to go on there, because the fuel will not go on. I should say the line won't go on until that valve cover is placed. I mean, we could put it on, but then we got to take it off to get the actual cover on. So that's just too much of a hassle. So we still got to work on that. Not to mention, now that I got this guy kind of where I want it for the most part, is I got to send this to my buddy and then see if he could make us a tube out of it and see what we come up with. Again, it's going to take some R&D, a little trial and error, but it's coming along. But I think that's going to do it for this video, you guys. Again, I got to get to work, man, and I got to send this out. And we got to make a few small tweaks for that shield as well. Not to mention everything else we just talked about. But guys, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the like button, and hit the bell for notifications. You guys already know. Stay wrenching.